Captain Una Park walked into the white testing room on the space station above Earth. She had never seen anything like it before. Strange machines covered the walls, making soft beeping sounds. Blue lights blinked on and off in patterns she did not understand. The alien scientist standing next to her was tall and thin. His name was Dr. Keth, and he came from a planet far away. His skin looked like purple metal and his eyes were huge and black. He had been testing humans for 3 days now, and he looked more confused each time. "Please sit here, Captain Park," Dr. Keth said. His voice sounded like music but sad music. "We need to find your breaking point." Una sat down in the strange chair. It was cold and hard. Metal bands went around her arms and head. She could feel tiny needles touching her skin, but they did not hurt. "What exactly are you looking for?" she asked. Dr. Keth touched buttons on his machine. Numbers appeared in the air above them, glowing red and green. Every thinking species has a breaking point. It is the moment when the mind says, "I give up." We have tested millions of beings across the galaxy. The smallest creatures break at 200 stress units. The strongest break at 3,000 units. The machine started making louder sounds. Una felt pressure in her head like someone pushing on her brain. It was not pleasant, but it was not terrible either. "The Zephyrians are very brave," Dr. Keth continued, watching his numbers. "They break at 847 units. The Crystal People from Vorthak last until 1,203 units. Even the Great Krex warriors who fight in gladiator rings for fun, they break at 2,891 units." The pressure in Una's head got stronger. She closed her eyes and thought about her home. She thought about her mother making soup in their small kitchen. She thought about her brother playing guitar on their roof, looking at the stars. The pressure felt like a headache now. "Why do you need to know this?" Una asked. "War," Dr. Keth said simply. "When we know how much pressure breaks a species, we know when they will surrender. It helps us avoid long fights. It saves lives." The numbers above them changed. 500 units. 800 units. 1,000 units. Una felt like someone was squeezing her head with giant hands. Her heart beat faster. Sweat ran down her face. "Most species start showing fear at 400 units, Dr. Keth said, sounding worried. "You are still talking normally." 1,500 units. 2,000 units. Una thought about her first day in space. She remembered being scared but excited. She remembered her father telling her, "Una, when things get hard, you get harder." "Tell me about the Krex warriors again," she said through her teeth. The pain was getting bad now. Dr. Keth looked at his machine like it was broken. "The Krex are the strongest fighters we know. They train from birth. They eat pain for breakfast. But at 2,891 units, their minds shut down. They curl up like babies and stop fighting." 2,500 units. 2,800 units. 2,900 units. Una gripped the chair arms so hard her knuckles turned white. But she did not ask him to stop. "Captain Park," Dr. Keth said, his voice shaking now, "you have passed the Krex limit. 3,000 units. 3,200 units. 3,500 units." The pain felt like fire in Una's skull. But instead of getting scared, she got angry. Who were these aliens to test her like a lab rat? Who gave them the right to measure human strength? "Keep going," she said. Dr. Keth's hands shook as he touched his controls. "Captain, this is beyond anything we have ever seen. You should have broken long ago." 4,000 units. 4,500 units. 5,000 units. Una started laughing. It hurt to laugh, but she could not stop. She thought about all the times people had told her she was not strong enough, not smart enough, not good enough. She thought about every time someone had tried to break her spirit. "Captain Park," Dr. Keth said, backing away from his machine, "what are you doing?" "I am thinking about my enemies," Una said, still laughing through the pain. "I am thinking about everyone who ever tried to make me quit. And I am thinking about how good it will feel to prove them wrong." 6,000 units. The machine started making alarm sounds. Smoke came out of some parts. Dr. Keth pressed buttons frantically, but nothing stopped the climbing numbers. At 7,000 units, something exploded in the machine. Sparks flew everywhere. The room filled with the smell of burning metal. Emergency lights started flashing red. Dr. Keth ran to another control panel. Emergency shutdown. Emergency shutdown. The pressure in Una's head disappeared instantly. She sat up and stretched like she had just woken from a nap. "Is that it? Are we done?" Dr. Keth stared at her with his huge black eyes. His purple skin had turned almost white. "Captain Park," he whispered, You just destroyed our most advanced testing machine. Yuna stood up and brushed dust off her uniform. Sorry about that. Send the bill to Earth. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned around. By the way, Dr. Keth, you never found my breaking point, did you? Dr. Keth looked at his broken machine, then at his notes, then at Yuna. No, he said quietly. I do not think you have one. Yuna smiled. That is what my father always said. Humans do not break. We bend until we become weapons. Commander Jinho Lee stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the dark shapes of enemy ships surround them. The Dominion fleet had arrived 3 hours ago. Their ships were huge and black like giant metal sharks floating in space. How many ships? He asked Lieutenant Miho Choi. 50 battle cruisers, Commander. Maybe more hiding behind the asteroid field. Miho's hands shook as he held his tablet. They sent us a message. We have 72 hours to surrender. Jinho looked down at the main level of the station. 30,000 people lived here. Scientists, teachers, doctors, children. His own daughter Hannah was down there somewhere, probably in her art class, drawing pictures of Earth flowers she had never seen. Sir, said Engineer Jean Woo Nam, running up to them. The Galactic Council sent us their analysis. They say we should surrender. No space station has ever survived a Dominion attack. Jinho turned away from the window. Get me Dr. Sori Kim from the research lab. Tell her to bring her entire team. And call teacher Minji Park from the school. I want to talk to everyone who knows how things work on this station. 1 hour later, 40 people crowded into the station's main meeting room. Jinho looked at their faces. Some looked scared. Some looked angry. All of them looked ready to fight. Friends, he said, the Dominion wants us to surrender. The Council says we should surrender. Everyone thinks we will surrender. He smiled. I think they are all wrong. Dr. Sori Kim raised her hand. Commander, I respect your courage, but we have no weapons. This is a research station. We study plants and rocks, not war. That is exactly why we will win, Jinho said. They expect us to fight like soldiers. But we are not soldiers. We are scientists and teachers and engineers. We think differently. He walked to the big screen on the wall and showed pictures of the station. Jinwoo, your water recycling system. How much pressure can it handle? Jinwoo looked confused. About 500 pounds per square inch. Why? Because that is enough pressure to shoot metal pieces through space very fast. Sori, your plant lab. What chemicals do you have there? Sori thought for a moment. Fertilizers, growth hormones, cleaning solutions. Basic chemistry supplies. Teacher Minji, the children's playground. What is it made of? Minji Park looked worried. Metal bars, plastic slides, rubber padding. Commander, you are not thinking of. I am thinking of everything, Jinho said. The Dominion has studied how species surrender. They know exactly how much pressure breaks different kinds of minds. But they have never fought humans who refuse to break. The first day passed quietly. The Dominion ships waited. They sent messages every few hours. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Jinho sent back, we are still thinking about it. On the second day, Dr. Sori Kim came to his office carrying a box of metal tubes. Commander, we took apart the playground swings. These metal pieces fit perfectly into our water pipes. We can shoot them at their ships. Will it work? Jinho asked. Probably not well enough to destroy their ships. But it will definitely surprise them. On the third day the Dominion attacked. Their big guns fired at the station's shields. The whole station shook like an earthquake. Children cried. Adults prayed. But nobody asked to surrender. Instead, Jinwoo Nam fired his water pressure cannon. Metal pieces from the playground shot out into space at incredible speed. They hit 3 Dominion ships, making small holes in their armor. The enemy ships stopped shooting for 10 minutes. Jinho imagined the Dominion commanders asking each other, did they just shoot playground equipment at us? By the end of the first week, things got more interesting. Teacher Minji Park had turned her classroom into a bomb factory. She taught the older children how to make explosives from cleaning supplies and fertilizer. The art supplies became timers. The sports equipment became weapon parts. This is educational, she told worried parents. Chemistry, physics, engineering. The children are learning more now than they ever did from books. 2 weeks passed. The Dominion brought more ships. They could not understand why the humans had not surrendered yet. Their psychological experts sent confused reports back to their commanders. The subjects should have broken after 4 days maximum. Something is wrong with our data. Dr. Sori Kim turned the plant lab into a poison gas factory. She used the station's air recycling system to spread sleeping gas toward enemy ships that came too close. 3 Dominion boarding parties fell asleep before they could even get inside the station. 1 month passed. The Dominion commanders started having meetings every day. They had never seen anything like this before. How could civilians fight so creatively? How could teachers and scientists become so dangerous? Jinwoo Nam rewired the entire station's electrical system. Now every door handle could give electric shocks. Every light could explode like a flash bomb. Every computer could overheat and start fires. Walking through Kepler Station became like walking through a trap-filled maze. 6 weeks passed. The Dominion brought their best psychological warfare experts. They sent scary messages. They played loud noises. They tried to break the human spirits. Instead, the humans got more creative. They turned their music system into a weapon that played Earth songs so loudly it damaged the Dominion ship's communication equipment. They programmed their computers to send virus attacks that made enemy systems play children's laughter at random times. 3 months passed. Jinho stood in his office, now filled with weapons made from kitchen tools and children's toys. His daughter Hannah ran in, covered in paint and smiling. "Daddy, look what we made." She held up a colorful ball. "Teacher Minji says it explodes when it hits something hard." Jinho hugged his daughter. Outside, the Dominion ships were still there, but their attacks had become weaker. Their crews were getting tired, confused, and scared. Nobody had ever taught the Dominion how to fight an enemy that turned desperation into art. Dr. Sori Kim stared at the red lights flashing all over her control panel. The station's main shield was down to 12% power. The Dominion ships had been firing at them for 4 hours straight, and the shields could not take much more. "Commander Lee," she called into her radio. "We have maybe 6 hours before complete shield failure." Jinho's voice came back tired and scratchy. "How long until the Dominion breaks through after that?" 15 minutes. Maybe 20 if we are lucky. Sori looked around her laboratory. 3 months ago, this place had been full of beautiful plants and scientific equipment. Now it looked like a war factory. Broken glass covered the floor. Chemical burns marked the walls. Everything that could be turned into a weapon had already been used. She walked to her desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a red folder marked Protocol Lazarus Final Authorization Required. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Engineer Jinwoo Nam found her there 10 minutes later. "Dr. Kim, the commander wants to see you in the meeting room. He says it is urgent." The meeting room was full of smoke and the smell of burned metal. Commander Lee stood at the big table with Teacher Minji Park and Lieutenant Miho Choi. They all looked like they had not slept in days. "Friends," Jinho said when Sori walked in, "we need to talk about something terrible." He pressed buttons on the table and a picture of the station appeared above them. The station was shaped like a big wheel with 5 main sections connected by tunnels. Each section had thousands of people living and working inside. "The shields will fail in 6 hours, Jinho continued. "When that happens, the Dominion will board us. They will take everyone prisoner. Our children will grow up as slaves on their worlds." Minji Park wiped tears from her eyes. "Commander, we have fought so hard. Is there really nothing else we can do?" Sori Kim put the red folder on the table. "There is one thing. But it is crazy. It is horrible. It goes against everything we believe." She opened the folder and showed them the plans inside. "Protocol Lazarus. If we cannot save the station, we turn the station itself into a weapon." Jinwoo looked at the papers and his face went white. "Dr. Kim, these plans show, you want to blow up Section C?" "Not just Section C," Sori said quietly. "We evacuate everyone to the central core. Then we blow up the outer sections one by one. Each explosion creates thousands of metal pieces flying through space at incredible speed. Like shooting bullets at their ships, but bullets the size of cars and trucks." The room was silent for a long moment. Finally Miho spoke. "That means destroying our own home." "Yes," Sori said. "We turn our home into ammunition." Jinho closed his eyes. "How many people can the central core hold?" "All 30,000 if we pack them tight. But they will have no privacy, no comfort, no space to move around. And if the core gets damaged, everyone dies. And if we do nothing," Minji said, "everyone becomes slaves. Children included." They sat in silence for 5 minutes. Outside the meeting room, they could hear the sounds of families having dinner together, children playing games, people living normal lives while their world was about to end. "I will not order this," Jinho finally said. "This decision is too big for one person. We vote. Everyone on the station votes." 2 hours later, the voting was finished. The results made Sori's stomach feel sick. 27,000 people voted yes. 3,000 voted no. Even the children over age 10 had been allowed to vote. Jinho's daughter Hannah had voted yes. When he asked her why, she said, "Daddy, if bad people want to take our home, we should break it so they cannot have it." The evacuation began immediately. Families carried their most important things to the central core. Photo albums, favorite books, small toys, letters from Earth. Everything else would be destroyed. Dr. Sori Kim stood in her empty laboratory one last time. All her plants were dead. All her equipment was packed away or turned into weapons. She picked up a small cactus from her desk, the last living plant on the station, and carried it with her. The first explosion happened at exactly midnight, station time. Section C, which had held the school, the playgrounds, and many family homes, was blown apart by charges placed in its foundation. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. Pieces of buildings, furniture, and children's toys flew through space like deadly stars. 3 Dominion ships were hit immediately. Holes appeared in their armor. One ship's engine exploded when a piece of playground equipment punctured its fuel tank. Section C debris impact successful, reported Lieutenant Miho from the Central Core's tiny control room. Enemy ships are pulling back to safer distance. 4 hours later, they destroyed Section D. This had been the shopping center, the restaurants, and the movie theater. Sori watched through the small window as pieces of their normal life became weapons of war. A broken cafe table spun through space and smashed into a Dominion communications antenna. By morning, 2 more sections were gone. Only the Central Core remained, packed with 30,000 frightened but determined people. They had no home left except one small sphere in the middle of empty space. But the Dominion fleet was in chaos. 5 ships had been destroyed. 10 more were damaged. The enemy commanders sent confused messages to each other. How do we fight people who destroy their own homes to hurt us? Teacher Minji Park held her youngest students close as they watched their old classroom furniture floating in space, now deadly projectiles heading toward enemy ships. "Children," she whispered, "remember this day. Remember that sometimes, to save what you love, you have to be willing to sacrifice everything." In the Central Core's command center, Jinho Lee looked at what remained of his station and smiled grimly. Protocol Lazarus complete. Home destroyed. Enemy confused and retreating. He turned to his officers. "Now we wait and see if turning our home into bullets was worth it." Ambassador Nari Song walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council with her head held high. Around her, representatives from hundreds of different worlds whispered and pointed. She could feel their fear and confusion like a cold wind. The Great Hall was enormous, with a ceiling that looked like the night sky. Each species had their own section with chairs that fit their bodies. The butterfly-like Zephyrians fluttered nervously in their tall perches. The rock-hard Vortex sat perfectly still, but their crystals were glowing angry red colors. Even the proud Krex warriors looked uncomfortable in their metal seats. At the center of the hall sat High Counselor Veltar, the same alien who had tested humans months ago. His purple skin looked even more pale than usual, and his huge black eyes kept looking at video screens that showed the destroyed Kepler station. "Ambassador Song," Veltar said, his musical voice shaking, "we have called this emergency session to discuss the unusual actions of your species." Nari looked around the hall. She had been to many council meetings, but never one where every species looked scared. "What exactly would you like to discuss?" A Zephyrian representative stood up, her butterfly wings trembling. "Your people destroyed their own home. They turned children's toys into weapons. They made their schools into bomb factories. To defend themselves," Nari said calmly. "Which is legal under council law. But not like this," shouted a Krex warrior, his armor clanking as he stood. "We fight with honor. We follow rules. We surrender when we are beaten." Nari smiled. "And how many of your worlds are now Dominion slave colonies because you followed those rules?" The hall became very quiet. It was a question nobody wanted to answer. High Counselor Veltar touched his control panel, and new images appeared above them. These showed Dominion medical centers, full of their own soldiers lying in beds, staring at nothing. "Ambassador Song," he said, "look at these reports. Dominion forces who fought at Kepler Station are developing something they call anxiety disorders. Their doctors have never seen anything like it before." Nari looked at the images. Dominion soldiers who were supposed to be fearless, were shaking and crying like frightened children. "What does this have to do with us?" A crystal being from Vortex spoke, his voice like grinding stone. "Your species is spreading mental illness to other races. The Dominion soldiers cannot sleep. They jump at small sounds. They refuse to fight in space battles because they are afraid humans will turn asteroids into weapons. Or turn their own ships into weapons, added a Zephyrian. Or turn anything into weapons. Your people have no limits. Nari walked to the center of the hall, where everyone could see her clearly. You're right. We have no limits when it comes to protecting our families. Is that supposed to be a bad thing? It is terrifying, said Veltar honestly. Every species in this galaxy has fought wars for thousands of years. We all know the rules. We know when to surrender. We know what lines not to cross. But humans, you cross every line and then draw new ones. The hall filled with worried voices as different species talked among themselves. Nari could hear fragments of their conversations. What if they decide we are enemies? How do we fight people who will destroy everything rather than lose? Maybe we should make them leave the council? Or maybe we should ask them to protect us. A message alert beeped, and new information appeared on the big screens. High Counselor Veltar read it aloud. Latest report from Dominion Command, fleet withdrawing from Kepler Station. Reason given, unpredictable enemy behavior causing psychological damage to crew. The hall exploded with shocked voices. The Dominion had never retreated from anything before. They were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Nari raised her hand for silence. My friends, you seem confused. Let me make things simple for you. The Dominion came to destroy a human research station full of civilians. We stopped them. Our people are alive. Their people are running away scared. What exactly is the problem here? The problem, said a Zephyrian elder, is that you have changed the rules of war forever. How can any species plan military strategy when humans might do anything? The problem, said a Krex general, is that you make the rest of us look weak. We surrender when we should fight. We follow rules when we should break them. The problem, said High Counselor Veltar, is that we do not know what to do with a species that has no breaking point. Nari looked around the hall at all the worried faces. I will tell you what to do. You can be our friends and we will protect you when enemies come. Or you can be our enemies and find out why the Dominion fleet is running away. She paused and smiled. But whatever you choose, remember this. Every species in this galaxy learned to surrender when things got too hard. Humans learned to fight harder when things got impossible. What if we vote to remove humans from the council? Asked a Vorthack representative. Then you lose the only species that just made the Dominion retreat for the first time in history, Nari replied. And when they come for your worlds next, do not expect us to help you. The hall was silent for a long moment. Finally, High Counselor Veltar spoke. Ambassador Song, the council will need time to discuss this situation. Of course, Nari said. Take all the time you need. We will be busy rebuilding our station in exactly the same location, just to make sure everyone understands that humans do not run away from fights. She turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Counselor Veltar? You might want to update those psychological profiles again. Humans still do not have a breaking point. But now we know that everyone else's breaking point includes fear of humans. 6 months after the Dominion retreat, Commander Jinho Lee stood in the construction bay of New Kepler Station, watching his daughter Hannah paint flowers on a freshly built wall. The station looked almost exactly like the old one, built in the same location where they had turned their home into a weapon. Why did we build it here again, Daddy? Hannah asked, her small hands covered in bright red paint. Wouldn't it be safer somewhere else? Jinho smiled and knelt down next to her. Because, little one, if we moved somewhere else, people would think we were scared. And we are not scared. The new station was bigger than the old one. Ships from dozens of worlds brought materials, workers, and gifts. The Zephyrians sent beautiful crystal gardens. The Vorthack provided the strongest metal in the galaxy for the walls. Even the Krex warriors offered to guard the station, though Jinho had politely said no. Dr. Sori Kim walked up to them, carrying her tablet and looking tired but happy. Commander, we just received another message from the Galactic Council. 3 more species want to sign protection treaties with Earth. Protection from what? Jinho asked. From everyone else. They figure if they are friends with humans, nobody will attack them. Sori showed him her screen. The Mellori bird people say they will give us their entire music library if we promise to help them if they ever get invaded. Jinho laughed. What did Ambassador Song tell them? She said we would think about it. But first they have to send us their best recipes. She says human soldiers fight better when they are well fed. Across the galaxy, things were changing in ways nobody had expected. The Dominion Empire, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, had not started a single new war since Kepler Station. Their military academies now taught courses called Unpredictable Enemy Response and Psychological Warfare Defense. Teacher Minji Park walked through the new school section, where children from many different worlds now studied together. Human children learned alongside young Zephyrians, Vorthak crystal sprouts, and even a few small Krex cubs whose parents wanted them to learn human thinking. Mississippi Park, asked a young Zephyrian student named Zil, is it true that human children helped fight in the war? Minji smiled carefully. Human children helped their families survive. They used their creativity and their minds to solve problems. Can you teach us to make explosives from art supplies? Asked a Krex cub eagerly. I can teach you to think creatively about solving problems, Minji replied. Whether you use that knowledge to make art or defend your home is up to you. In the Galactic Council halls, High Counselor Veltar was reading reports that made his head hurt. The psychological profiles they had spent centuries developing were now completely useless. Every military strategy had to be reconsidered. Sir, his assistant said, bringing him more papers, we have received formal complaints from 17 different species about human unfair fighting methods. What are they complaining about this time? Veltar asked tiredly. The humans on Colony World 7 turned their farming robots into defense systems when pirates attacked. The pirates are traumatized. They say it is not fair to fight with tractors and crop dusting equipment. Veltar put his head in his hands. Did the pirates win? No, sir. They retreated after the humans started shooting fertilizer bombs at their ships. The pirates' medical officer says his crew now has nightmares about corn harvesters. Meanwhile, engineer Jinwoo Nam was in his workshop, teaching a group of alien engineers how to think like humans. Representatives from 12 different worlds sat around him, taking careful notes. The secret, he explained, is to never think, this cannot be a weapon. Everything can be a weapon if you are creative enough. This coffee cup can be a projectile. This chair can be armor. This flower pot can be a bomb. A Vorthak engineer raised his crystal hand. But Jinwoo, this thinking seems very violent. No, Jinwoo said, it is very human. We do not love violence. We love our families. We love our homes. We love our freedom. When someone tries to take those things away, we will use anything and everything to stop them. The galactic trade networks had also changed. Human products were now the most valuable items in the galaxy, not because they were beautiful or useful, but because other species wanted to understand human thinking. Books about human psychology sold for enormous amounts of money. Human teachers were hired by governments to train their military officers. But the biggest change was in how wars were fought. Species that used to surrender quickly now fought longer, trying to copy human determination. Some were successful. Others learned the hard way that having no breaking point requires more than just stubbornness, it requires creativity, unity, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for what matters most. Ambassador Nari Song received a special message from the Council that made her smile. Ambassador, the Galactic Council would like to formally recognize humanity as the first species to be classified as psychologically incompatible with standard military analysis. She sent back a simple reply, thank you. We prefer the term stubborn. Back on Kepler Station, Jinho Lee watched the sunset through the new observation windows. His daughter Hannah ran up to him, her latest painting in her hands. It showed their station surrounded by stars with the words, "Our home" written in bright colors. Daddy, she said, do you think the bad guys will come back? Jinho hugged her tight. Maybe, little one. But if they do, we will show them again that humans do not break. We bend until we become exactly what our enemies fear most. Outside, ships from dozens of worlds flew past their station, not as conquerors but as friends and allies, all because one species had refused to surrender and turned that refusal into an art form. The galaxy had learned a new rule. Every species has a breaking point except humans, who turn their breaking point into everyone else's nightmare.